What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, and of course this is Dark Hour Tech. And as the holidays are coming to a close, go lay down. Go lay down. Huck is coming in to say hello. But as I was saying, the holidays are coming to a close, and hopefully everybody has had a wonderful holiday and got to spend some time with their friends and their family and all that, and had a really good time and got to really celebrate the season with their loved ones. But with the holidays, we know that a lot of people will be getting new systems. A lot of people had been hoping to get new systems and may not have gotten those. And of course, with the people that did get them, that's going to be a lot of older systems that are going to be hitting the market. So what can those that were hoping for something that didn't get something do? Well, you can always go to the pre-owned market or look at other options for buying a PC. There's a lot of different options out there. As far as options go, you can always go to a e-tailer or an online retailer such as iBuyPower, CyberPower, Dell, or even HP or Origin, and buy a system online that's going to be brand new. And of course, as far as how far your money will go, that will be determined by what kind of build that you do for it. And that's going to really probably eat into the budget more than anything. Of course, the other option that you have is to go and buy all the components and put it together yourself, which has its own satisfying layer of accomplishing that. But not everybody, one, has the time, the patience, or the desire to build a system themselves. But you can definitely get more out of your money doing that than you could going with a pre-built in most cases. And then, of course, you've got the used market. The used market is actually a good source to actually get a gaming PC if you need a newer system, or if you need components, or if you need a first system. But there's a lot of things that you have to take a look at and take into consideration when you're buying online, and definitely some things that you need to be aware of to look out for to avoid getting taken or running into a scam or purchasing something that isn't what you think. So we're going to take a look at that today and take a look at a few listings that may raise a few red flags, some that actually don't raise any red flags and are good deals, and how to spot the difference between those different ads that you may run into. And now, of course, anytime you're buying online, I always recommend safety first. If you do end up buying anything online, if it's something that's local and it's not going to be shipped to you, use your safe online exchange points that most cities have as far as being manned, or at a police station for online purchasers, to transfer money and the goods in a safe location. Outside of that, let's take a look at a few listings. We'll probably get a good laugh here or there about a couple of things that we're going to see. All right, so we are actually here on eBay right now, and there's a few systems I've already taken a look at and kind of taken a peek at to see what kind of deals that there are. One system that we're actually going to take a look at that we saw is going to be this one here for $8,500. This one is a gaming PC. That's all it says, is with a For the Win 3090 graphics card, which is a obviously an RTX 3090 i9 10900K Intel chip, a Z590 motherboard, and 32 gigabytes of RAM. And it includes also an Alienware 360 hertz monitor. If we take a look at the pictures here, we got a real nice pretty picture of the rainbow lights on the EVGA card. That's pretty typical of For the Win. We have a picture of two monitors. Of course, when we take a look at that picture, we can see that the one on the right is an Asus monitor. The one on the left is the Alienware. And I've actually done a little bit of research as to what Alienware monitor that is to get an idea of what its price is currently. And then, of course, we've got another picture very similar to the top one of the case itself, which has actually got the tinted glass. So we really can't see much of what's on the inside, and it's really hard to tell exactly what's in there. Very vague pictures indeed. So hopefully what you're really looking for on this is a more of a defined breakdown further down as to what you're working with as far as components. course, we go down here and we don't really get much of anything new. It tells us pretty much the same things as up above. An NVIDIA RTX for the win, 3090. Graphics card with an i9-10900K, a Z590 motherboard, and 32 gigabytes of RAM with the Alienware 360 Hz monitor. Now, this says nothing is wrong with it. Perfect condition. It's new, barely used. Everything in it is the best of the best. Spent over 10K building the PC in every spec. I'm telling it's the greatest thing you can have. If that wasn't the most confusing sentence there at the end, it is definitely a huge red flag when somebody claims that their PC is the greatest thing that you can have. They do state that nothing is wrong with the monitor, best monitor they've ever had, and they have the best Asus monitor for 240 hertz, so the monitor is barely used. They decided to make it as a bundle, and if you want the PC only, they'll do 7,500. Anything else can be negotiated. I think you got a lot of negotiation to do on this, for certain. $8,500 for this, I think we are way far off on this. Taking a look at the case, it's Corsair 4000D. And let's go ahead and take a look at our PC part picker list to see how it matches up with this listing. All right, so here we go. We've got our PC part picker list with as much as I could closely match up with the listing here for the 8500. We've got the Intel Core i9-10900K. Then we also have a Corsair iQ H150 Elite Capellix AIO. Now, you can't tell, and he doesn't state what the cooling on the system is, whether it's air-cooled or AIO. If he's gone for the best of the best, as he states, I would imagine he went with an AIO, probably a 360 millimeters. So we threw that in there as a run-of-the-mill 360 millimeter AIO that goes into systems. The RGB that we're seeing coming through the case does not match up with having an AIO on it, but we're kind of just making do with what we can tell. We've got Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro, 32 gigs of RAM, 216 gig sticks, 3600 speed. He doesn't mention the speed in the listing, so we're going to assume that, as most people do, they do 3600 speed memory on that. He also doesn't mention anything as far as the storage on that, whether we've got a terabyte SSD, NVMe, or if we're working with a hard drive here. So we're going to assume that as a best of everything, as he states, a terabyte M.2 that's going to be on the motherboard, a 970 Evo Plus, followed by a 980 Pro 1 terabyte. And we've added those in as, based on what he's saying, the best of the best. We got an EVGA for the win, 3 Ultra Gaming 3090, 24 gigabyte card. We also got the Corsair 4000D Airflow ATX case, which we matched up with the pictures. Just as a little bit of buffer on the power supply, we said an RM850, which is probably a little bit overkill for this. We could get away with a 750, but just again, because he's saying he went with the best of the best, we went with an 80 plus gold certified Corsair RM850. And then he did mention the Alienware 360 hertz monitor. Now, actually looking at the pictures, matching it up, this is an AW25, I believe, 24.5-inch 360 hertz monitor. Now, in the listing, he's listing, if you want to go without the monitor, he'll drop the price by $1,000. Well, these things brand new go for $550, not $1,000. So we have that added in. Of course, we didn't add in any other peripherals or fans, because again, we can't really tell what he has in there. He may just be running with the case fans and the AIO. So that all said, what that brings us to is a total of $3,593, which is way far off from the $8,500 that he is saying that he wants for the system here. So this is beyond a blatant markup of trying to recoup for overpaying for a graphics card, most likely 2 or 3 years ago. Just because you overpaid back then doesn't mean you can make up the difference now. The price of the system and what it's worth is what it's worth. And just like with buying an automobile, they depreciate over time and use. These parts are if we were to purchase this brand new, and it doesn't even match halfway to what he's charging for this. So this is definitely going to be a deal. I would say stay the hell away from this. It's just very generic, very much just gouging as far as prices to drop the cost of everything down to 7,500 because you took the monitor off. When you can get one of those monitors for 550 bucks, it doesn't equate out. So I don't know if this person is just living in dreamland. It's hard to say, but this is definitely some of the wild stuff that you'll find out on the used market. Now I'm using PC Part Picker, which is a great tool to use to look at the systems that you're considering buying and whether it's going to be a good deal and whether it's worth really considering or even making an offer. So basically with this, you can go in and build as close to the build as you can off of these lists here. It also will check compatibility. It'll give you a notification if anything seems like it may be incompatible or may be BIOS update required before you can use, like, say, an AMD chip or something like that. But for the most part, this is going to be a good tell-all to whether you're looking at something that is worth considering or something you need to really run away from. And by run away on this one, I mean run as fast as you can. You got to keep eyes out for listings such like this. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. All right, so on this one here, we've got a more reasonably priced PC to some degree. This is actually a gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous PC. This really is sporting those Lee & Lee Uni fans, a lot of Uni fans. You've got 10 total in there. Looks like we got an AIO from Lee & Lee up top. Well, it's a nice color scheme. And it really looks like a well put together device. This is actually the H9 NZXT flow case, which is just a great case to work with. Wide open, it's got good airflow through it, and will definitely help keep everything, cool and going. And then as far as the other items that we have in here, we have, this is either a 3070 or a 3080, most likely, original Asus ROG Strix white OC graphics card. With this graphics card, you can kind of tell the original versus the LHR because it's got the third cutout here on the back, where on the LHR one, you only had the two front ones here for the most part. The originals had that third cutout on the back plate of that graphics card. Now, whether that's a 3070 or 3080, I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say it's a 3080 because you have 3 plugs up here. The 3070, I think, only worked off 2 8-pins. So that's something to definitely take into account. So we're probably looking at a 3080 with this one. But let's look at the listing. Let's see what we've got marked as far as what's in here. We've got the Lee & Lee Unifan SL Infinity 120 RGB triple pack. We've got the Intel Core i9 12900K gaming desktop processor. That's the chip. And then we've got some cable extensions. That just makes everything look that much nicer. Some cable combs are in there as well. NZXT H9 dual chamber ATX mid-tower PC gaming case. That came with some fans stock and also supports up to a 360 millimeter radiator. As you can see, that's what he's got in there. We've got a 2 terabyte WD Black NVMe for a solid state drive. We also got an Asus ROG Strix B760A gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. And then with that, we've got Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR5 RAM. That's 2 16 gig sticks running at 6,000 megahertz. So one concern I have over this, and he's saying we'll take best offer, but one concern I have over this is if we look at the pictures here, we've got this 3080 card, 3080, possibly maybe a 3090. But most likely a 3080, and it's in all of the pictures. But what we don't see is that card is listed on the breakdown, which this is something you got to be very, very cautious about, and you have to be very aware of is when you're looking at these systems, are there things in the pictures that aren't mentioned in the breakdown of the components or the items that are going to come with the device when you purchase it? And this is a good example of that with that graphics card not being listed in this breakdown of everything here. So if we take a look at the listing itself and look further down, he has no further breakdown of anything down here on the bottom description that would clear that up for us. So this would at a minimum require us to contact the seller to ask him, does this include the graphics card? All right, so here's our PC part picker list for this build out. And this one is not as bad as the one before this, but this one does bring up the other concern, like I said, of that graphics card. Now, if we look as it's listed in the breakdown of the components and all that, if you get everything but the graphics card, I mean, generally you're looking at $1,727 brand new, going off of the way the breakdown is in the text of this listing here with no graphics card listed. Again, looking into the graphics card, this is an Asus ROG Strix White OC graphics card, brand new from Asus. Those are going for just under $1,200, but they're not available. So there's markup on those throughout the area out there. So you're going to have to pay a premium those if you're going to get those brand new, upwards of $2,000. But again, this is not brand new. This is pre-owned. So again, if we are going to take a look at getting this as a pre-owned and we want to take a look at that graphics card. So if we take a look at that Asus ROG Strix 3080 OC White Edition, we can see here that you can get that for $730 here on eBay as it is pre-owned. And then that will actually still be well below the cost of the $1,200 to $1,300 that we're still short on the $3,000 asking price. All right, now if by the off chance that that's actually a 3090 ROG Strix White OC Edition graphics card, you can see here that yes, you could still get it for under $1,000. You could actually get it for $800. So that is still well off from the $1,200 that were away on the PC part picker list. So whether that's a 3080 or a 3090, we are actually still quite a ways off, a couple of $100 from what the listing is at $3,000. So if you were to get a pre-owned white edition, even a 3090 or a 3080, and build this out yourself, you're definitely going to be saving yourself $200 to $300 from what you are going to be able to get it for here as a pre-owned on eBay. But again, the biggest red flag with this one is the fact that that graphics card is not listed in the breakdown list of the components that you're going to be getting. So you may not even be getting that graphics card for the $3,000 they're asking, which is definitely key to remember, because this would definitely require you to contact the seller to find out more information. My guess is that hopefully it's just an oversight and he didn't list it on there, though that graphics card, if it's a 3080 or a 3090, would be a key selling point for that. And I wouldn't be overly shocked if he's planning to hold on to that to put into a different build and trying to get that $3,000 for the system, which if that's the case, absolutely, again, just like the last one, run away from this one. Don't entertain it. Don't even make an offer. All right, and that brings us to this listing here, which I just had to throw in as a joke, and I am praying so hard that this is just a typo. And even if this is a typo, we're still probably pushing the limits of, asking more for something than what it's worth. This is $23,100 for a Cyber Power Gaming PC RTX 3080, a 10700K with 32 gigs of RAM, and 6 total terabytes of storage space, for that being on a hard disk drive, 1 on an SSD, and 1 on an NVMe. We look at the pictures here, and it is god-awful ugly with the green and the red. And it's not very clear pictures that will give you an opportunity to see inside. It actually scored as a high-end gaming PC, which, I would expect with, what we're seeing with the 10700K and the 3080. But what we actually see down below as far as a further breakdown is we've got a 10700K with Windows 10, Asus Prime Z490 motherboard with 2 NVMe slots, 2 16 gig 3600 megahertz RAM, for a total of 32 gigs. And then we got the RTX 3080. We got a WD Black 2 terabyte SATA hard drive, a Seagate Fire CUDA 2 terabyte SATA hard drive, a Samsung 970 EVO 1 terabyte, a Western Digital Blue NVMe 1 terabyte. And then, of course, we got some RGB fans. We have an 80 plus gold 800 watt Apevia power supply. Apevia, not one of my most favorite brands of power supplies. I usually, even with the gold, the 80 plus rated ones, I try to avoid them if at all possible. They have quite a bit of unrated stuff out there as well too. Of course, you got the Asetek 550 LC 120 millimeter water cooler, and it's in a Lee & Lee 08 dynamic case, which the equivalent to that these days would be the 011 dynamic. It was a good case back in the day, and actually it's just been superseded by the 011 dynamic. But overall, it's got some decent specs to it. We can see that it's got 360 millimeters of fans on top, ARGB. We got the graphics card there, and then it's got a rear fan, no fans in the front at all. All right, so if we take a look at our PC part picker list for this listing, matching up what they have listed basically on their breakdown list in the description, we've got the 10700K processor. We've also got a equivalent 120 millimeter AIO unit. We've got the Asus Prime Z490 Victor ATX motherboard, the Corsair Vengeance 32 gigs of RAM split between two 16 gigabyte sticks. And then we have the Western Digital 2 terabyte WD Black drive they had listed, the Seagate FireCuda 2 terabyte drive. That was a hybrid drive that is the closest thing that I could match up to what he mentioned there. The Samsung Evo 970 with 1 terabyte in storage, and the Western Digital Blue 1 terabyte SN550. After that, we've got the EVGA for the win, Ultra Gaming GeForce RTX 3080, which was probably the closest I could find as far as a reasonable price there. And then we've got the Lee & Lee PC011 Dynamic, which would be the equivalent to the PC08 from that time. And then we've got a standard 850 watt power supply equivalent to, he doesn't mention anything about the power supply. So if we throw something in there, middle of the road, a good speed and good rating. If we throw something in there, middle of the road, a good wattage and a good rating, it should fairly well match up with what he has in there. But we also added the Intel AX200 wireless adapter that he has listed as well. Now, keep in mind that this is actually with buying all brand new parts. Right now, I'm going to assume, and again, I reached out to this buyer, haven't gotten a response, that this is some type of typo. It's very easy to make that mistake, especially if you're posting something from your phone. I'm assuming he meant to ask for $2,310, kind of an odd price, but let's just say he is asking for the $2,310. We price it out $2,160 with brand new parts. So again, we're still about $140 off from if this is a typo, and still something I would say.
Right, that settles it. Walk away. Just ignore them.
Be very, very mindful of. Now, keep in mind, if this was in perfect working order and everything, and this was a listing for a pre-owned and all that, I would expect, based on what we're seeing here, that a reasonable asking price would be probably somewhere in the $1,500 to $1,700 range maximum. And even then, you better be ready to negotiate down a little bit. Now, if this is not a typo, this is absolutely absurd if they think they're really going to get $23,000 for this. So again, this is not one I would probably entertain. All right, and that's going to bring us to our final candidate. And this actually kind of inspires hope into what we're going to see out there in the used market. And this is actually a good example of what to look for. We see that we've got pictures for the interior of the case. It's really dark and really doesn't really help us see a whole lot, but we can tell that we got an air cooler here with a single RGB fan. We got 2 sticks of RAM, 3 intake fans on the front, and we've got our graphics card here. We also have a hard disk drive down here. We see here that we got a Zotac gaming graphics card. They're asking $500 US. Now, this is an i5 9600K, so it is an older chip, but that chip was a very good gaming chip. It's overclockable, and it's still very, very relevant to this day. Now, according to this listing, we also got an RTX 2060, which actually was a very decent graphics card back in the day. It's still very usable to this day with most games and everything. If we go down to the breakdown down here, it's a little bit shorter, but it's very detailed in what most likely we need to know the most about. We got an RTX 2060. We have an i5 9600K. We have a Gigabyte Z390 motherboard, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM at 3200 megahertz. We got 1 terabyte platter hard disk and 128 gigabyte solid state drive. Runs most games 125 FPS. Older games will hit 300 FPS. Great entry level buy, and I would say I can totally agree with that. I mean, the price seems as though it's fair, but let's take a look at this on PC Part Picker. All right, so taking a look at our PC Part Picker list for this listing, again, he's asking $500 US. We've got a i5 9600K, which surprisingly, these chips are still fetching $220 out there. They're still very viable chips and very usable, and definitely a decent chip to have, especially in a starting system. We went ahead and added an air cooler, a kind of middle of the road, decent air cooler, T120 from NZXT. We've got the Z390 gigabyte motherboard, and then we put on 2 sticks of 8 gigs each of the Corsair Vengeance RAM at 3200 speed. We've got the Western Digital 1 terabyte, 7200 RPM hard drive, and then we've got 128 gigabyte NVMe. And then because Zotac Gaming doesn't have any RTX 2060 still in production or available for purchase as new, we actually grabbed an EVGA SC Gaming, should be fairly equivalent to that. And then because I can't tell what case he has here, kind of picked a middle of the road Corsair 4000D Airflow ATX case. And then also put in a 600 watt power supply. Again, probably a little bit of overkill based on his system, but probably a middle of the road generalized one that we could definitely use for a comparison. And in total, everything there brings it to $1,081.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough.
But he's asking $500 for this one that he's selling, and basically he states in his listing that the only reason he's selling it is because he is not gaming anymore. So if you were to run across this one, I would definitely say this is one you want to reach out on and inquire about, because the specs and the equipment that's in it is definitely very, very good for the price that he's asking. Now, again, that could be too good to be true. The price is definitely very good. And when you do want to make that offer, you want to remember that most people are going to have the expectation that you're going to haggle and negotiate to some degree. But of course, that negotiation, all that is going to be based upon what their asking price is. In the case of this, if everything we're seeing on PC Part Picker is correct in comparison to the price that he's asking, I think he is right where he should be as far as asking for this. He could actually even ask a little bit more in my mind. I would probably be pushing more around the $600 price range and probably still feel like I'm giving somebody a good deal. The biggest thing you want to keep in mind is, again, it's coming from eBay. It's going to have to ship. There's going to be additional costs for shipping and everything. And if you decide to get insurance on that shipping is always a benefit as well too. But for what his build is here, I think this is an extremely reasonable price. And there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in my mind here with what he's offering you. There's also a lot of room here to upgrade as well too. You could always get rid of the hard disk drive and put in a solid state drive, another NVMe onto the motherboard, increase the storage that way to faster storage so you don't have to deal with that, or just add another one and keep the hard disk drive as a backup. You could always upgrade the memory some more. Definitely make sure that any system that you're talking about, you talk to them about the Windows key. Are you going to get the Windows key for the system so that if you have to reset it or re-image it, that you're going to be able to? If not, be prepared to go on to an online site like G2A where you can pick up a Windows key fairly cheap for like $20, $25. This is the kind of listing that you really want to pay attention to and, jump on if you get the chance. Now, as far as protections to make sure the system is running as the way that he's saying it, the number of systems I've sold, I've never been against somebody asking for a video call to have me boot up the system, see that it reaches a post or it reaches into Windows if it has an operating systems on it. I had no problem doing that and asking for a video call to do that live with you on the phone with him. Not a bad idea, not a bad thing to ask for, and any legitimate seller should be willing to do that. And again, that's doing your due diligence by asking for that, as well as using a PC Part Picker to see that the equipment you're buying is actually a good deal for you. You want to make sure that you're using something like PayPal, eBay, something that has some built-in protection so that if something does go afoul, you have some things to be backed up on. PayPal is great for that. The other thing is also if you're doing a local pickup, like I said before, use your online exchange sites that some local police departments actually provide here in the US. I'm not sure elsewhere in the world if they provide for those things, but that kind of protection is actually very good to have. If you can't use an online exchange point through your local police department or your town hall, then you can always pick a very public place in the middle of the day, like a Starbucks, grab a cup of coffee, do the exchange inside the public area of Starbucks, and then go on your way from there. Be safe when you're buying online. That's definitely something, especially around the holidays, I can't stress enough. But hopefully this information has helped out those that are going to be doing some shopping for some pre-owned systems. Again, do your due diligence, use PC Part Picker. It's very easy to use. We'll give you an idea of whether you're looking at something that's going to be a viable system to buy or something that is just way out there like what we saw earlier. And always feel free to hit me up in the comments if you have a posting that you find that you'd like my opinion on. I'm more than happy to do so. You can reach out to me at darkhourpc@gmail.com. You can also visit our website where I do custom builds as well as local repairs and upgrades. We are going to be moving in here soon to shipping throughout the lower 48 states. That's darkhourpc.com. So check that out and hit me up with any questions. We are always happy to help you out here at the channel. And I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you've had a wonderful holiday season. Everybody take care, and we will see you in the next video.